Carla. So, from my understanding, both of your parents, mother and father, immigrated to America from Italy. Can you tell me what area or region they're from, or you're from?
My father is from Bari, Italy, and his town is Spinazzola in Bari. And my mother was from Città di Castello near Rome.
Can you describe what their life was like there?
Well, my dad came here as a young man. He came here in 1902. No, he was born in 1902. He came in 1920. He was 18 years old. So he came as a very young man, and he had a large family. He had a lot of brothers, and he came here. They followed each other. So they had married already, and they called for him, and he came. They had a farm in Italy, and they worked hard, and they didn't want to work so hard. They had to feed the animals, feed the animals. They had to tend to the crops, and they had to work hard. And they wanted a better life, and everybody wanted to come to America because they heard that the streets were paved in gold, that everything was better in America.
So when did they decide to immigrate to America, and what were their reasons?
Their reasons were to find work that wasn't as backbreaking as it was in Italy, and to be with his family, and to be reunited together and have a good life together.
So can you explain any myths or stories that they've heard or about America, and what the myths and the lores that revealed to be so beautiful?
Well, they said that it was beautiful, that there were plenty of jobs, and that was true to an extent. You know, they wanted to have a good life, and they came, and everybody had to work very hard in order to get a good life. They all lived in one apartment together. He had like 5 brothers. They all lived together, and then they took the apartment next door as they got married and had families. And but they stayed close together. It wasn't as easy as everybody thought. They had to adjust. They had to learn the language. They had to learn the customs.
So in the long run, how did America affect their lifestyle when they came here?
Well, it affected their lifestyle. They all saved. They all ate together. They all scrimped and saved. And sometimes they would lend one money so somebody could buy a house or get a better apartment. And then when that one got established, then they went on to the next one. And this way they all helped each other to get settled, and to buy some property or to have a house. And this way they put down roots, and everything grew from there.
So do you know of the difficulties they faced on their journey here?
On their journey here, they met people that everybody had. The thing was, everybody was happy. Everybody wanted to come here to have a better life. And even if they didn't communicate with each other and they didn't know each other's language, they all knew, they were all happy that they were all coming here to have a good life.
So, on this journey to America, did they make it alone? Who accompanied them?
My father came alone. His brothers were already here. They already had wives, and he came by himself, and he lived with his family. And yes, he came alone.
Did their family, friends react in Italy when he came to America? Did he influence them to want to come here?
Well, the brothers all came, but they didn't influence their mother and father to come.
Why is that?
They were already older, they were settled, and they wanted to stay there. So sometimes, so they took turns going back to visit, but no one ever went back to live.
Do you remember how old they were when they came to America?
They were all young men. They were young men. My father, I think, was the youngest one when he was 18. He was the youngest brother. So everything, everybody was already established here with wives and children.
Uh-huh. So where in the country did they arrive?
Ellis Island. Ellis Island.
And if any, what problems did they face during arrival?
Well, they changed my father's name. His name was Carlo, and they changed his papers and made him Charles. So since he left Ellis Island, he was Charles Vigilante and not Carlo Vigilante. So he had his name changed. He had to learn the customs. He had to learn the language. He had to learn the streets. How they use the telephone, how they communicate. Their customs. And to get along with everybody, because there were so many people from different countries, and to learn how to get along with everybody else.
When they were looking to settle and looking for a house and an apartment, was that a difficult task?
Well, he moved in with his brothers, so that wasn't hard. It was just hard to. It was like you're in a new country, so you have to learn the streets. You have to know that when you're going to go out, you know how to get home, where you live, and you know how to use the train or the bus, and how to get back and forth, and how to communicate with people.
Was it difficult for him to find a job? What was his first job?
His first job, his brothers worked at a furrier, and he worked at a furrier. They worked at a furrier for a while, and then my father tried, in the 1930s, he tried to be a hairdresser. But he said the women were too particular, and he didn't like that. So he started working in the Brooklyn Navy Yard as a mechanic, and that's where he retired from.
Now, this question might apply to you as well as your parents. Did you notice that, how was the schooling different, and how did she adjust to the schooling from Italy to America? What was the schooling like there, and what was the schooling like here?
Well, the schooling there, they were in a small town, so they had a few children in the schoolroom, and they progressed like that. Whereas here, you're already established. They had schools. It was bigger. They had much bigger class. They had classrooms. They had so many different things here that they offered compared to what they had there. But my father didn't go to school here because he was already 18.
And I'm sure it was hard for her because she didn't speak any English. So when she came over here.
Well, my mom came in like 1956. My dad came in 1920. But my mom had a hard time. She, as a matter of fact, when she first came and they lived in Brooklyn, she used to see signs all over the stores that said sale, and she thought everybody was selling salt. And she said, why is everybody selling salt? Because it's sale in Italian.
So the language barrier had a huge impact on her.
Yeah, she never really learned the language completely, and it was difficult for her. My dad did because he was a young man.
What were the differences in the American economy in comparison to the economic state Italy was in?
Well, America was a booming country. Everything was hopping, but then there was a depression. So they had to buckle under. They were living together anyway, and they really had to squeeze pennies in order to survive the depression. As far as Italy, you had to be careful. You had to make sure that the crops were healthy, and that they tended to them so that they would grow and they would be able to prosper at the end of the growing season, and also to keep their animals healthy, and so that they could prosper.
Uh-huh. So, all in all, was it difficult? Do you think it was difficult for them to adapt to the American way of life, or
It was
gradually?
different to adapt. It was a totally different way of life because you come from a small community and then you're in New York where everything is booming. There's motion. There's things going on all the time. So it's a totally different atmosphere. It's something to get used to, but it was exciting. There was a lot of people to meet. There were different things going on, and so it was very different. It was exciting, and it was young people. They were mostly all young, so they adapted quickly because they were young.
Now, answer this question from your point of view. Are you satisfied with the decision your parents made moving here? Are you?
Of course.
You like living in America?
I'm an American citizen. This is the best country to be in. And
do you think your parents felt the same way, or they could have?
I think my parents were happy that they came, that they made a life here, that they had their family here, and they were happy. It was a good decision.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you.